All right, welcome to pruning fruit trees. So pruning fruit trees is done for a couple of reasons. The main reasons is that to control the fruit load and to also train the plants into something that's suitable for that type of fruit. So in this case, we have a picatum, and this is a hybrid between peach and plum and apricot, all three. Is that right? Picatum, peach, yeah. And so as such, it's kind of a blend of those different kinds of habits, but they're all stone fruits. And as stone fruits, what's typical training method for stone fruits is this open vase center plant where there's nothing in the center, but it kind of looks like an upturned like wine glass. And so these ones will fruit on old wood and new wood. If it's a peach tree, they'll prune just on this year's wood only. But you can see there's a lot of wood in there, and one of the questions I get a lot of is how do I know where to start? And really what I'm looking for first is stuff that's growing up through the middle, that's crossing through anything else, or looks like it's probably going to be shaded by other types of branches that are overshadowing it. And then also on these kind of trees, I'm also looking at what is the height, and I don't really want any of the height to be any taller than what I can reach by my with my loppers. So really I'm not looking for a tree that's any taller than maybe 7 feet or something like that. So you can see the flower buds are already starting to open on this, but really one of the things I look for is I don't want branches growing straight down, and so these ones come off right away because they're all producing wood that's growing straight down. And I don't want that. And then I also just kind of look for branches like right in here, we've got a branch that's just coming off and crossing over through a whole bunch of others. And I'm just going to thin those out. And so one of the hardest parts about pruning is that you have to cut wood. And that is hard for a lot of people to do. And you think, wow, look at all that fruit that I'm leaving, that I'm putting on the ground because I'm pruning all these branches. And that means all those flower buds are being removed, and I'm not going to get that fruit. But really what happens is that because these trees have been bred so much to produce fruit, they're very precocious, that they'll produce more fruit, or try to produce more fruit than they can realistically handle. And so what we're doing then is we're reducing the fruit load, and we'll have to come back and follow anything up we do with this tree. We'll have to come back and follow it up with thinning later on. But what I'm doing right now is just giving it a basic framework for this year, and just trying to leave wood that will be primarily productive without allowing the plant to be too productive. So it's hard. I've pruned a lot, and so I can see stuff that maybe is harder for other people to see, and I can go pretty quick. And like I said, though, what I'm looking for really is I'm looking for a certain height. I'm looking to just thin out branches to where there's just a few branches for the fruit to be borne on. And when I'm done, because this is in the stone fruit group, most of this tree will be on the ground when I'm done, half of it, maybe even a little bit more. And that's pretty alarming for people. But we pruned it the same way last year, and you can see all that lighter colored wood is almost all of it grew last year. So there's plenty of new wood that it'll produce. And so we just kind of go to that point. So just bear with it. I'll watch me go through it, and then we'll come back and talk about it at the end. So one of the things that I'm trying to do as I go through this is to keep it going to the open habit. So I'm removing branches, some branches that are where this one here was coming out, and there was 2 branches going up. I cut the tries to force growth more out towards this side where I have more room for it. And it's not too tall. So now it starts to encroach into the road a little bit over where I am now. And so I want to be careful of that and looking to see where this has been pruned before, because as traffic comes by the service road here, these trees get damaged quite a bit. In fact, I'm going to come back even farther and take that branch off, clear back there. So that's the general idea. So I'm just coming through and I'm doing some branch thinning. I head back a lot of these branches because I don't want them to keep growing straight up. This plant has produced a lot of water sprouts, which is wood that just kind of goes straight up into the canopy. And I don't really want those. They're not productive, typically, in the sense that these will bear lots of flowers, but because they tend to be shaded a lot by the branches above, they tend to not be as productive. And I switched over to using loppers because a lot of the wood is a little bit larger and it's just hard for the hand pruners to stay useful. But you can see these ones here come up, kind of interfere with the branches up top. And then we have this big mess up here on the top of this where I can probably take care of most of it. Like that. One big cut. One of the things that I like to make sure I'm doing with most of these kinds of prunings is where I'm really focused on making sure that I'm doing thinning cuts. So that is most of the stuff that I'm removing the branch all the way to the base. Complete removal. And then a lot of the tall branches that I've left that I might want to have branches form on in the future, I head those back so that they'll produce some new growth that will hopefully be branches or new flower shoots, and then I can work with those in a future year. So they just give me options. But you can probably see now at this point kind of a basic theme emerging here, and that is one of hopefully not despair, but that a lot of the wood's just simply going to get removed. So I've pretty much got this one last section here to work over, just a few minutes, and then I think this tree will be done. That's how I'd prune that tree, obviously, because I did. So like I said, most of the tree will be on the ground when you're done, and that's pretty typical for most of the stone fruits. really all the stone fruits. This is actually a fruiting elderberry. It's not one of the ornamental types. It's one that's being evaluated in different places in the state. And so we put one here just to see how it would do. And it's been growing here for just one full season, one full year. And you can see that it wants to just spread out horizontally. And we really prefer these to be either multi-stemmed, very upright shrubs, or even some small trees. And so obviously this one's not heading in that direction, and that's pretty typical for elderberries. So I'm going to remove a lot of the wood here and just try and select for some buds that will break and hopefully give me some options to go straight up. I did leave a little option here last year that just simply died back after it was planted. And so we basically had the central leader just aborted. And so we want to try and encourage it to regrow that somehow by choosing some of these other shoots. And so this might be pretty drastic, but I'm going to remove almost all the wood on here and just let it kind of start over. See if it gives me some options. This is a really strong, and it's got some really nice shoots coming out of the base down here. Some of which I'm actually just going to remove right now because I don't want them to grow there. And then I'm actually just going to remove that there. And so I still have probably left a lot more buds than I need to. In fact, I'm actually going to just remove that whole thing. And so what you might be able to see here is we've got a really strong shoot right here that could potentially be my new leader. And I've left another one here off to the side and another one here. So we'll see. They tend to sprout like crazy. So it's got a good root system now. So I think we'll be in better shape this year to let it start doing what it needs to do. So one of the things that a lot of homeowners struggle with is taking a very young tree and getting it initially shaped into something that will resemble what they might see in an orchard or a vineyard, or that's really structured for production. And this is a little peach tree that actually just got planted a year ago, and it didn't have a lot of branching options on it, and so we actually cut the top off right here. So it was taller, and we cut it back about 2/3 of the way. And you can see that some of the lower branches that it already had have developed a lot. And then we also got this nice new shoot out here to give us some more options. And what I'm really looking for on this is 3 or 4 branches that will kind of go out in different directions and just kind of create that upside down wine glass. Remember, this is a peach tree, and so it needs to be pruned to an open center. And so this year I got some options, and I can start to actually train it to be more of that open center. And so I'm actually going to take that leader off. And so as you see, I selected a branch that's growing out in that direction. There's a branch that's growing out in this direction here, but really what I want is this branch right here to continue to go out here. We've got this branch, this group here that's growing out that way. What I'd really like to see is, and we might see it this year, is a new bud to break on this side of the tree and come straight out towards the camera. That would be ideal. And so remember that at this point in the life of this little plant, that fruit development is not what we're after. This year, we're shaping it and training it for fruit development in a couple of more years. So we're a couple of years away, really, from where this is going to bear fruit. And so right now, I'm just trying to develop that framework and make sure that it's giving me enough options to work with. So there's not going to be a lot of fruiting wood. There is still going to be quite a few flowers on it, but I would remove all the fruit that's going to happen on this tree anyways for at least another year and probably another 2 years. Okay, so oops, I'm standing here behind it. This is a young apple tree. This has been in the ground a few years. It hasn't been super vigorous, but it's starting to get into its own now. And you can start to see that there's a lot of water sprouts, these tall shoots that come up right through the middle. And we actually train apples into a kind of it's like a double upside down wine glass, really. It's like 2 peach trees stacked on top of each other, where we have a lower set of branches and then an upper set of branches, and that's what we're trying to encourage here. It hasn't responded as well as we'd hoped, but it's doing better and getting a lot stronger. And so what I'm going to do to this is basically thin out a lot of the wood and open the canopy up and try and encourage a second layer of branches to form up a little higher. And so I might actually even select this one, this water shoot here, water sprout here, for next year, and see if it gives me some options for next year. So again, remember that fruiting wood is not necessarily what I'm after right now. I'm after development of a good structure so that we have good fruiting wood in the future. So I'm cleaning out a lot of the interior wood here, branches that are coming out from the bottom, and just kind of setting up my structure. And there's some branches on here that I'll probably still end up removing in future years, but that I want to leave right now so that they can give me some options. But you can see that I'm still trying to prune it to be open, like we did the peach tree and the plum cot, or the picatum. But that I'm really working to try and simplify this, what we see here as well. And one thing I like to do is if I'm removing wood, just keep in mind that you can take more wood off later, but you can't put it back on if you take it off. So sometimes I'll take something off and then I'll walk the tree, come back, and decide that I think I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive with that branch and take more wood off. Now this tree it is old enough to produce fruit, and if it does produce some fruit, we'll let it go. But this tree actually got ran over a few years ago and damaged, and so that's why we're really trying to work with it to bring it back up into something that's more suitable for production. Remember that as a grower, you're the one that's going to have to be in charge of ultimately what the tree does and how big it gets and all that. So while these trees are all on dwarfing rootstocks or semi-dwarfing rootstocks, still potentially a very large tree. And so I still have to control it by pruning and telling it, well, I don't want you to be any bigger than 8 feet tall or something like that, and that's manageable for me. So that's probably about what I would do to this tree this year. And then, like I said, we'll just keep encouraging it. What I'm trying to do is to develop some more branching up here, and then when that happens, I'll work with this framework down there a little bit more aggressively. All right, so what we've got here, this is a small pear tree, and pears tend to want to grow straight up, and we're always fighting that. This one we've tried to work with to get it to be a modified central leader like we do with apples. But it's really wanting kind of to open up on its own, and so we're just going to go ahead and work with that. And so at this point we're going to declutter the center and just try and maintain the height on it and cleaning it up a little bit, and then just let it go as this is how it's going to work as far as its productivity. So I'm going to take out what we had left as a central leader, which has turned out to be really weak. So we're just going to go ahead and remove that. And then almost all the rest of this now is basically going to be just to try to open it up a little bit more and remove a lot of the water sprouts that are in here. So there's tons and tons of fruiting wood on here. All of these short little branchlets here are all fruiting spurs, and all these tall water sprouts here are not fruiting, and they probably won't bear fruit for a couple more years if we leave them. So for the most part, they tend to kind of choke up the middle, and we don't normally leave most of those water sprouts unless we're trying to get branching into new areas. So you'll notice that I'm leaving them because I want them to develop some fruiting wood on them. So I'm not removing them completely, but I am telling the tree where it's going to put its energy. And again, how do I choose how tall it's going to be? For me, it's about how high I can reach with my loppers or my hand pruners. In this case, is about as tall as I want it. Pear wood is also a lot more brittle than apple, so sometimes have to be careful with that. And that's just too close to the ground. And this I want to leave because it does balance the tree this way, and that's what I want to keep. So hopefully that little branch there will become a little stronger. So I'm trying to select the buds that face in a direction I would allow any future growth to go. And then this one here just kind of comes up and rubs into its neighbor, so I'm just going to remove it completely at the base. And this gets a little messy in here, but there's fruiting wood there. I want to leave that. And then we've got some branches here kind of growing straight down, which I don't want. Trying to decide where I want to make that cut. This one's interfering. That one's just gone. Here we've got several growing out at the same point. Don't want those. In fact, I don't want any of those there. But you kind of get the idea of what I'm looking for here, and where this tree's kind of already decided it's going to stay here. As far as size goes, it's not going to doesn't really want to make that secondary leader in there anymore. Just going to work with this. In fact, those two are kind of problematic because they're so close together. So that one comes out. And at least for this year, that's probably where I'd leave this tree.